everyone, and welcome on into Just Soccer. Andi Petrillo alongside Shireen, Ahmed, CBC senior contributor, soccer analyst as well. And we have some big news in the Northern Super League to share. The first ever major internal player movement. So let's jump right into it. We know that Latifah Abdu of Montreal was not happy, wanted out of her contract. Montreal obliged. And then, as we were doing our NSL broadcast on the network, Shireen, the big news broke that she did, in fact, join the Vancouver Rise. What was your initial reaction when you heard she was making this move?
First of all, I was like, this is a mistake. It shouldn't have been released right now. It was supposed to be released later in the day. There was some snippets and some we were sort of deciphering because there was messaging from Vancouver Rise of announcing they were going to sort of predicting who their player was, and it said something like she previously bloomed and now will rise, so like that's pretty indicative.
Mm-hmm.
I What shot through my veins instantaneously was journalistic excitement. I love a little bit of a mess, Andy. You know, I like some journalistic tension and drama. That's what in my visceral reaction was oh,
Mm-hmm.
and then jump on my phone and start trying to get comment from both teams. So it was really interesting. But then when we look at the broader scope of it, I think, yeah, I'll keep landing on this is messy, but I don't think this is a bad thing.
No. And when you start to compare it, we see internal movement elsewhere in so many other sports. If anything, you wonder the precedent this sets if it does open the door, if other players also now feel like, wait a second, if I'm not happy, can I make this move? And at one point, does a team say, we're not releasing you? Like you can start to see just different scenarios playing out here, such as sport. But let's talk about the player in particular. Do you think Vancouver is actually the right move and the right environment for Latifah?
So if we're going to look really technically at her position and whether there's an opening for that, I mean, you could argue that Holly Ward there is someone that's already carrying a lot of that attacking strength. I'm actually more concerned about Vancouver Rise's midfield, particularly if Quinn they're injured. What does that look like? Can that generate a lot of attacking options or plays? Because Latifah is known to be an attacker. She's also known to be Latifah Abdu is known to be very very specific on where she wants to play. Like, I will not play here, I will not play there. So it'll be really interesting to see how that melds with Anya Heiner-Moller, who's a very sort of direct, has a very centered approach in terms of coaching. Because although I started this conversation saying it's messy, this happens in WSL, this happens in NWSL. Players move, and what it is I think we're feeling this residual. Well, it's the inaugural year of the Northern Super
Mm-hmm.
League, but at the end of the day, these are elite athletes. They're competitors, and I know we're all in still very much, and I particularly, I'm in a felt like a kumbaya stage. So
Yeah.
we're beyond that. We're beyond that. We're into the competition. We're into the grind. We're into the grit. And this is gritty. So
Mm-hmm.
this will go part and parcel with what the league is supposed to be. It's supposed to sharpen the opportunities for the athletes. And whether or not this is the best move for her, we have yet to see.
Girl, I believe they call that the honeymoon stage. The honeymoon is over. It
Over.
is over. Now we're getting down to the meat and potatoes of what makes things tick. Who do you think actually benefits more from this? Montreal or Vancouver?
So, very interestingly, after the announcement was made, the Roses won their match. And then all their messaging, some from the players and the team, was about unity and looking forward. I actually think Montreal Roses have handled this with a lot of grace. Marinette Pichon's statement that I got when we were about to go on
Mm.
broadcast was actually, I think it was really, it had a lot of grace and a lot of maturity because you don't want to keep a player that doesn't want to be there. I think first and
Mm.
foremost, that's a golden rule because that comes with too many things. I'm not convinced on Vancouver Rise yet because I haven't seen the melding and the weaving in of Abdu as a player there. So I'm very interested to see where this goes, what it looks like. I think there's a lot of responsibility and pressure on Abdu herself as a player and a performer in terms of how it'll look, how will you get along with the players on the team because chemistry off the pitch actually really matters here. What that looks like, there are a couple players that was monitoring the social media. She got a lot of welcoming messages from players, and a source of mine close to the team is like, there's excitement. And that's all I
Mm-hmm.
got was excitement.
Okay. Well, you're right. Montreal, after everything went down with Latifah saying she didn't want to be there, they went on and won. But then after the move was announced that she went to Vancouver, Montreal played each other that very night. Vancouver came
Yes.
away with the 2-1
Yes.
victory. Oh, let the drama continue. Here's some news, other news in the NSL. I wouldn't call this drama. This is bittersweet because we are going to switch on over to the Halifax Tides, where veteran goalkeeper Erin McLeod, who has proudly also donned the maple leaf for many years for the national team. I will never forget her mohawk, which was just the coolest thing ever on the world stage as well when she wore that during the tournament. She's announced she's retiring from the game, Shireen. You actually sat down with Erin for an exclusive interview, and we know that she has dealt with so many injuries throughout her time. What was the injury that ultimately forced Erin to end her season and her career?
In addition to a bone bruise and a stress fracture, she actually has a tear at the insertion of the fascia tissue in her foot, the plantar fascia,
Mm.
and a bone bruise and the thickening of the plantar fascia. So it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
compounded. There's a lot there. As you said, this isn't her first rodeo with an injury. She's had multiple knee injuries. However, this was season ending, and she is wrapping up her more than 2 decades of a career with a bow. The emotional impact is intense, and she told me that she's like, I don't even know if it'll hit me until I'm actually away from Canada. If I'm in Iceland, I'm out, and then I reflect back. You know, sometimes when we process something, it hits later. And
Hmm.
so she's been really hands-on with the team, with the league. She's been one of the advisors to the league. She's been supporting Diana Matheson's venture since day one. So there's a lot there. She's also picked up a couple of different roles in Halifax in the soccer scene. So she's definitely not removing herself from the beautiful game. I think Erin will always be, you know, inextricably linked with the beautiful game, but it's going to be a different role now, and that's tough. It's tough to hang
Yeah.
up the cleats. So, well, pack away the gloves and just look over. I think her leadership has been part of her legacy, and what she's done within the game and the ecosystem has actually been something that I really hope that Canadians understand how deep her contributions are.
Okay, when we look back on Erin McLeod's career, I've already kind of hinted. Now, it's not so much about how she played, but the 2019, or sorry, under 19 World Championships, the Mohawk that just caught my attention. But I think she was just the start of so many wonderful goalkeepers that this country has had. Karina LeBlanc is somebody who talks about having played beside Erin McLeod and what they were able to learn together as a duo. I mean, I think goalkeeping has just always been so strong for the Canadian national team, and Steph Labbe coming from that, and obviously now Kaylin Sheridan. Like, it goes on and on. And for me, my most recent memory, and I know there are those before, but for me, it started with Erin McLeod. When I just look at the legacy as well on the women's side of goalkeeping, it started with her, and just the amount of World Cups and Olympics that she was a part of for Canada. I mean, you just don't forget somebody who was, helping the team become trailblazers. She obviously mentioned to you too that playing this long has been a gift. So let's hear from her in her own words.
I think what's been the most like beautiful thing, and I know we've talked about this before, is coming home to have so many people on this team coming to games, people I see in the streets, just, even people who are my age saying like, I started playing goal because of you, or people younger than me, and especially a lot of love from like the queer community. And even though, disclaimer, I didn't know I was gay when I had the mohawk. I know I helped a lot of people feel more comfortable in their own skin. And it's been a battle. I think most people battle with being their authentic self a lot of their life. And for people to be able to not only watch me and try my best day in and day out, but also to see me try to be the best version of myself. And I'm grateful in every way for that.
Shireen, as always, a blast catching up on some footy with you. And for more on Erin's story, by the way, you can read Shireen's exclusive interview right now on the CBC Sports website. See you later, Shireen. Let's now welcome to the show the head coach of the Canadian men's national team, Mr. Jesse Marsch, getting set for 2 games in this September window. Pretty exciting to see the men back in action. Welcome to the show, by the way. And I know you've been doing your media rounds. There's a lot to get into. But the last time you and I actually spoke was at an event in the city of Toronto in the summer. And at that time, a lot of players still hadn't signed or landed with some of their clubs. Now that they have, what stood out to you the most about maybe where some of these players have landed for you?
Yeah, I was talking, at the event, Andi, which you hosted really well. Thank you for making myself and Bob Park look so good at the Glory Sports event. Yeah, we at that time I predicted that there might be between 10 and 15 transfers of our players, and it turned out to be somewhere around 13, 14. So um, obviously a lot of changes. I was able to, I guess the right word to use is participate in a lot of these transfers and decisions and work with the agents and the players and discuss, what situations might be best and most beneficial for the player and his club career, but also looking forward to what we're doing with the national team and the World Cup next summer. So I feel good that a lot of players actually have gone to places and clubs and coaches that I'm familiar with or that I know. And I think that will help us really work together to help the players be in the best position to perform for club and country. And I think everyone who's taken on players looking into next summer at a club level is also very aware that these players are really looking forward to the possibility of what the World Cup can be. And I think the Canadian players are special in that way because it's a home World Cup. So the discussions have been really good, really professional, and I'm really happy with where most of the players have landed.
Obviously, with Canada being in the World Cup, I mean, these are World Cup players or potential World Cup players, and they'll be coveted by teams. But at the same time, how much credit do you give to the players and what they've been able to do on the national stage to warrant attention from big clubs? I mean, obviously, your Jonathan David's the biggest one with Juventus. I mean, at what point do you give credit where credit's due and that these players have earned the right to represent the Maple Leaf at the pro level at some of these storied franchises?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, like players like Johnny and Alphonso Davies, they kind of have created such a high level of play and already such great careers that they've garnered attention from the best clubs in the world. I think some of the best stories are like Annie Oluwaseyi and Nathan Saliba and guys who came from MLS, have fought their way to get to Europe and have landed at good clubs and are ready to perform at a really high level. And I think that we're, as a national team, really going to benefit from that. So it's exciting to see a lot of the different players playing at different clubs at a high level, a few more in Italy. So, I can keep track of them a little bit more closely. But in general, I think the relationships we have here on the inside of the national team are really true, really strong. And I'm proud to represent this national team because of the country, but also because of these players.
Where do you see the most competition happening as well within this squad? You just mentioned a lot of these players who have come onto the scene since you've been the head coach. I mean, is that competition in the midfield? Is it who's going to play against Jonathan David? I know these are things we talk about in the media, but I'm curious, as a coach, where do you see some of that toughest competition happening on the pitch for you?
I think now we've put together a squad and a roster that there's competition at literally every spot. And that's saying something given, how high the level of certain players in the what would be considered the starting 11 are at. But the entire squad has been bolstered. We're younger, we're more dynamic. We've got a lot of players playing at a really high level. I certainly think that in the attacking positions, man, we have a lot of options. We have a lot of dynamic players. We have a lot of guys that I think can help us in a lot of different ways. It gives us some flexibility to how we play. In the center of the midfield, in like the 6, 8, 10 position, we've got a lot of really good players. And I think that obviously Stefan Eustáquio is such a great leader in the team. But Ismail Kone, Nathan Saliba, Mathieu Choinière, we didn't even call in Oso. And I think Oso's playing really well since summer and since he's been healthy with Toronto, and it helped them kind of stabilize. And then as good as our back line is, and as good as we know guys like Alphonso Davies, Derek Cornelius, Moise Bombito, and Alistair Johnston are, Luke de Fougerola is going to push all those guys. We know Richie Larea is a really important guy in the team. Nico Segura, I think, had a great Gold Cup and will fill in for Alistair. And I think getting more experience for him will be really helpful for him and the team. And lastly is goalkeeper, man. I mean, I know in Canada, we all love our goalkeeper, but we know that Dane and Max have a real strong competition there, and that in all these situations, I feel just like we have options. It's hard to make wrong decisions, and we can think about how to use players against the best opponents and what combinations of players give us the best chance of finding an edge in the match.
I love storylines too. I think the older I'm getting, maybe the sappier I'm becoming, but knowing what Tajon Buchanan has gone through with his injuries, to see him land at that club, to see him get a hat trick, what does it mean, even for you as a coach, to see a player feel comfortable in his body again?
Yeah. Well, I think Tajon's a confidence player too. And we could just see the swagger he has during training, the belief he has in himself. He's not the most outwardly vocal person or player, but you see the difference, the spring in his step, right? When he's playing well and when he feels confident and when he wants the ball. And a big part of it has been his physical fitness. Like even before Copa, he wasn't playing much and he wasn't at his top fitness level and form. And now to see him, what I knew from the beginning, because of watching him in MLS and watching him in Europe and watching him from afar, I knew Tajon was one of our biggest talents. And he's now showing just how big a talent he is. So exciting, really exciting. I think that Villarreal made a really good decision in getting him permanently. And I think he's going to have an absolutely great season.
Let's just talk about this first match, Romania. What does success look like for you?
Win, right? We came here to win. And we haven't won against a European opponent on their home soil since 2009. And we've talked along the way. We've had a lot of different boxes to check of things we've wanted to achieve on our way to the World Cup. Obviously, we came short in the Gold Cup title endeavor, but we all know that we're on a good pathway. We're going to now lean a little bit more toward finding a real stable lineup, finding our best group. And then, I challenged the team this morning that I showed them that we haven't had good performances off the bench, that we haven't had enough 90-minute complete performances from all 16 players that have been called upon. And that's the challenge now, not to just have a good start to the match, not to just have the lead when we get it at halftime. And if you looked at our goal differential, which you guys can do, since I've been here, we've had great first halves and mediocre second halves. And if we can find a way to perform in the second half like we have in the first half, then I think we have a chance to be really, really good and have a really good chance to win against the top opponents.
Great stuff, Jesse. Looking forward to seeing you guys in action. And yes, you just also announced another game, November 13th at BMO Field against Ecuador. And really appreciate you taking the time here on Just Soccer.